Are you a beginner artist who just started out your journey? Well, I'm a beginner too. So I have some tips for you. I've been drawing for about a year now, so I have some experience. I'm still a beginner because I don't draw like every day or every week. So you might think, why does a beginner even give advice? Well, this is not really art advice. It's more like tips and tricks on how to get started and what was difficult for me, and I hope that other people can relate. Because at the beginning it's not really important whether or not you can draw or not. It's more like trying to enjoy it, trying to get into it, and then practice will make you get those experiences. So if you're struggling with your first classes, then let's find out what helped me, and hopefully it will help you too. Okay, tip number 1. Tutorials only get you so far. I guess we all think that tutorials can teach us how to draw, and I know that a lot of people start with that. I started with that too. The problem with tutorials is that they make it look so easy, but it's not. If you only follow tutorials, then you will learn how to copy those tutorials, but you will not understand the structure or the knowledge behind it. And then you become pretty good at copying, but then you will not be able to draw anything else. Also, tutorials usually just show you 1 or 2 things, but you don't really know what was before it or how you should improve after it. And I think the order you learn to draw new things is important too. Also, I feel like when I try to follow tutorials or just watch a lot of tutorials, then I end up trying to draw everything much quicker than I would normally do. Many times drawing quicker can make your lines straighter or like more refined, but if you don't really know how to draw that particular thing, then it will just end up kind of shapeless. I don't know how to call it. If you like try to draw a circle or an eye and then you draw it too quickly, then the shape of it will not be right. I think drawing tutorials are more for entertainment than really teaching you anything. Buying a drawing book or textbook on drawing, I think it's a better idea. But then again, I also did this and I just found myself reading through it but never really practiced it. Just read it and I thought that somehow the knowledge will come to me. But no, drawing is muscle memory, so you have to practice too. So if you're struggling, I advise you to try to find a teacher. You might feel like it's expensive or unnecessary, but I think teachers are still the best option. And I don't mean like you have to go to an expensive art school or even like art high school or anything like that. Even just afternoon drawing class. And also there are many adult beginners, so don't feel ashamed. You don't have to feel like, oh, I didn't start it when I was a teenager. Even if you're in your 40s, you can still start to learn to draw. Teachers can show you the structure behind learning how to draw, so they know where to start, where to continue, and they also can give you a lot of feedback, which is, I think, really important, because there are many people who think they can draw, but if an expert looks at it, then they notice like maybe the proportions are not that good, or maybe the perspective is not that good, or sometimes I just make mistakes like something is smaller than it should be, or like I don't give enough color to the shadows, not enough contrast, you know. And many times they corrected mistakes I didn't even realize I was making. And if you feel like you can't afford it, for example, then I advise you to still go to maybe a few classes, maybe 1 class a month, and then you can practice what you learn, and then next time you go, you can show your teacher all the works you did. They can still give you feedback, and then you can practice the new thing that you learn in that month. So I would give it a try. Just following tutorials will probably not teach you how to draw. My second tip is give it time. Learning how to draw is difficult and it takes a lot of time. So don't get discouraged if your first class ends up being really difficult. For me, I couldn't even sit through those 3 hours. Literally, On my first class, my arm was hurting, my butt was hurting. I just wanted to go home. It was also in the afternoon after work, so I was also tired and I was drawing cubes. So yeah, not the most enjoyable. I also realized that you definitely need to bring a sharpener because toning is just eating your pencils. So if you're the same and you end up feeling a bit disappointed after your first class, don't worry, it's totally normal. Give it 1 or 2 months, even a bit more sometimes. Unfortunately, many people give up after 1 or 2 classes because they think that they're not talented or that they're not cut out for art, but it's not true at all. Everyone has difficulties in the beginning. Even if you felt like you could draw before, your first few classes will be difficult either way. Also, maybe your teacher will tell you that your drawings are not that good, but don't worry about it. You will improve, definitely. So basically, it's just don't give up in the beginning. It will get easier and it will also get more enjoyable later. And that brings me to my third tip is don't forget to enjoy it. As I just said, learning how to draw is difficult, especially at the beginning, so don't be so strict with yourself. Maybe you will feel like it's too difficult for you, or maybe you're not talented. You might even begin to kind of hate it or dislike it at the very least, because it will kind of feel like a chore or something that you don't want to do. Because many times if something is compulsory, then you won't always feel like drawing. But even if you don't feel like drawing, you will still have to because you have class. So on those days, what helped me is just, kind of going into class thinking that, yeah, I will do something. If it turns out bad, it doesn't matter. It's just practice. I will not show it to anyone. If I don't finish, that's okay too. And it kind of got the stress of it off my shoulders, and I felt like it was easier that way. And also my drawings actually turned out better. Going to art school is also a good way to socialize, to get some new friends. If it's a class where there are more people, like on different levels, don't feel like they're so much better than you or they're more talented. It's not true. They were just practicing it for longer. When you will be a few months ahead, then you will know. You will understand what I'm talking about. Because then your drawings will be better and the new beginners will kind of feel like they're not as good as you. My fourth tip is don't rush it. Don't try to skip the fundamentals, because when you will get to more complex structures like a skull or face or anything like that, then it will be much more difficult to make your drawing work. I was like that too. I really wanted to draw humans as soon as possible. And yeah, I kind of rushed ahead. And then when I got to the faces, my proportions were not good. Perspective was really difficult because, my teacher told me, okay, draw your face into the cube and then you will see where everything should be. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I should practice the cubes a bit more. So don't feel hurtful if your teacher tells you to practice something a bit more, even if it's boring to do the same thing over and over and over again, because you will need it. So don't rush it, it's a learning curve and you will get there soon. Honestly, after drawing for about a year now, I still feel like I can't draw too well. I still have a lot of things to practice. You can now see some of my earlier drawings. They might look good to someone who is just a beginner, but more experienced people, I'm sure you can see that they're not that good. But it's a learning curve. You have to practice, and sooner or later you will get better at it. I'm somewhat better now. If you want to see how I draw now, then please check out my Instagram. It's in the description below. But now I'm more into simpler illustrations, although I'm sure I need to practice realism too a lot, because still humans are a challenge to me, so that's why you also don't really see me drawing humans. My point here is that even if you try to draw something simple, even if you just want to do illustrations, it's important to know realism, because if you don't know how something should look like, then you can't really make it simpler, because illustration is basically just taking some of the details that you find important and then leaving out the rest of it. My last tip is always try to finish your pieces even if they look like they're gonna suck. I know I said earlier that sometimes I felt like not finishing my pieces, and it might be a little contradictory, but basically what I mean is if you can't finish your pieces during the class, then bring them for next class or finish them at home. Finishing on the one hand causes you to have a feel of success, but it's also important because if you don't finish them, then you never get the end of the process. And then you will get a lot of good practice in drawing the shapes, but you won't get practice in shading or coloring or painting. Also, you will not have any finished pieces. So then what can you show to your friends and family? Many times I also felt like I didn't want to finish my pieces because, for example, I made a big mistake that I just didn't want to go back to correct. Then, just drawing a new one will fix it because it will not have that mistake. But it's still better to try to finish it. Because having finished but not so good works is still better than, for example, a masterpiece that you never actually make. And your first pieces will be bad. You don't have to feel like you have to make something pretty right from the first class. Your friends and family will still probably praise you for it. And if you feel like you are always struggling at the same point, then that means that there's something there that you need to practice. So don't be scared of these mistakes that you make, because this is where you are going to learn. This is where you're going to improve from. I also found that some of these mistakes sometimes just disappear when you actually finish your shading or coloring. So maybe you just need to trust the process. At the end, it might not suck that much after all. I also have a little bonus. A little cheating at the beginning might help you. Okay, like, what do I mean by cheating? Like, how can you cheat at drawing, right? Well, these cheats are more like little tips. I call them cheats because teachers don't usually like if you do them, but it might be really helpful. So the first cheat is take a picture of the subject, and when you finish your sketch, take a picture of your sketch too from the same angle and try to compare them. Now don't just make a picture of the subject and then copy it, because that's not gonna help you, and this is what the teachers don't like about it. But if you make a picture of your finished drawing and then compare the two, then you will see the mistakes, because sometimes I feel like our eyes actually trick us. So especially with drawing cubes, that I really didn't like them. The perspectives, for some reason, when I saw the box, I kind of didn't see it the way it was. And then when I tried to draw it, the perspective was not right, and I didn't understand why. And then my teacher told me that sometimes it happens that you don't see those lines clearly. And then you kind of have to learn how it should be. But on the picture, it's much more clear. It might have to do something with how our eyes perceive depth. But if you take a picture, then both your subject and your drawing will be flat, 2D, so it's easier to compare. It sometimes also helps with color, that's what I found, because if I just look at the subject with my eyes, then usually I don't make the contrasts or the shadows as deep, as dark as they should be. But please don't copy your picture, because then you will not learn how to train your eyes. And my second little cheating is it's okay to look at other artists' work and try to figure out what you like about their style or what you don't like about their style. Now, I don't really mean copy them, don't copy them, but just observe what you like or what you don't like about a particular style. You can try to copy their work to see if you can actually reproduce those styles, but don't upload it anywhere, especially not without the consent of the original artist. And so these were my tips. I hope they were helpful. Always try to reflect on your work, what works, what doesn't work, what's difficult, and what you need to practice. I once had a teacher. He was actually not an art teacher, but an economics teacher. And I really liked what he said. Whatever you do, be happy with your results, but never satisfied. To me, it means that I should always be proud of my work, but also always look for ways to improve. So that's what I will do, so I hope you will follow me through this journey and then we can improve together. For other beginners, did you find these tips helpful? Or are there any more that you would like to add? Are there any more experienced artists watching? Do you have any more tips? Maybe I could learn some new stuff too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe and hit the like button. See you next time! It's so hard to record my first video.